Like, it seemed like the team came out with pretty good energy. I'm guessing you probably liked the first period and then rallied back at the end. So overall, I'm sure you're pretty happy with the effort.
Yeah, I'm really happy for the players. I think to get a win at home in that fashion, I think is a huge boost for the group. I think this group's been through a lot over the last 3 weeks or so, and to come home and have that kind of start, and that was something that was a point of emphasis for obvious reasons. The last couple of games, it hasn't been our best. We wanted to try to get momentum right away, and I thought we competed pretty hard. Give Boston credit, they fought back, and they're a good team. But I loved our fight. I thought we just stayed with it in the third period. We found a way to get the tying goal, and then obviously Robbie makes a great play in overtime. I was happy for him, so I couldn't be more happy for the players. I think they deserve that one.
It seemed like a lot of the young guys, you mentioned Robertson getting the winning goal, Perreault has the assist on the JT goal, it was the Cooley, Laba, Hoffman line that gets the first goal. I mean, as far as getting those contributions from the young guys, like how important is that, especially just looking forward to the rest of the season, the situation you guys are in, to give those guys opportunities and see them flourish with them?
Yeah, it's great. I think when we can infuse our lineup with youth and energy, I think it bodes well for us moving forward. I think Gabe has done a great job playing with Mika and JT. You can see his offensive instincts. I think he's getting more comfortable with the game with each game that he plays and the experience that he gets. But he has the instincts to play with those guys, and I think it's evident. That pass he made to JT is that's an elite play. There's a lot of guys that don't have the vision or the skill set to execute the play, and it was a really smart play on his part, but just the vision to see it. So we're real excited about the progress he's made. Lobs is continuing to grow and develop, and he brings a speed game. I think when he plays with Will Cooley, those two guys, I think, have a pretty good north-south game, a speed game. They're fairly reliable defensively, so they can play on both sides of the puck. We have no issues playing them against anyone, so I think he's continuing to progress. Robbie's been pretty good on the blue line for us. He has pretty good offensive instincts also. You could see it in the goal. His mobility, I think, is one of his biggest strengths, and and so some of these young guys are, they continue to grow and develop.
Mike, with Gabe in particular, just the consistent opportunity, do you believe that is a big factor in the steps he's been taking? That like it's a consistent line for a little bit now. He's consistently getting, and it looks like he's now more consistently looking to make plays as well.
Yeah, I'm sure consistency helps. I think consistency of ice time is I think the important element of it. But I do think just consistency helps with any player. And so with Gabe in particular, and he's playing with two of our leaders that I think have taken them under their wing, so to speak. But they also recognize his ability and his talent level, and so I think those guys like playing with him, and I think they're great mentors for him. But I do think just consistency of playing time and watching him grow. And as I said to you guys all along, when we're introducing young players into the league, what we're looking for, what I'm looking for most of the time is a player overwhelmed. Because if a player is, it's not in his best interest to continue to be underwater, so to speak, and get overwhelmed by the game if it's too fast, if it's too strong, if whatever it may be. And so we try to watch for that when our young players go into the lineup, and sometimes the only way you find that out is you put them in the lineup and you wait and you see and you watch. If the young players are not getting overwhelmed, and they're learning through the experiences, there's going to be growing pains along the way. That's part of the process. But my biggest thing that I always try to look for is just making sure that we protect the young players to a certain extent by not allowing them to get overwhelmed, because it's just not in their best interest from a development standpoint. It can actually set them back. It affects confidence levels, and I've seen it happen on a number of different occasions over the course of the last 20-something years that I've been coaching in this league. So with Gabe in particular, he's gone through a process this year where, he was started in the top 6, and his first call up, we felt like he was a little bit overwhelmed. The next call up, we moved him into the top 9. We felt like he had a comfort level there, and as he continues to get experience, we've moved him back up into the top 6, and he seemed to be able to handle it to this point. And so that's what I look for when we're trying to infuse these guys into the lineup, regardless of who the player is or what position they play.
What have you seen in Matthew Robertson's development? I take it some of which you just described applies to him.
Same thing. We've moved Robbie around our depth chart on the blue line. He's been in the third pair at times. He's getting top 4 minutes at times. Obviously the fact that he's out there in overtime suggests that we have a certain level of confidence that that we trust him to the point where, we feel like his play is deserving of being in those situations. And so, but it's the same thing. We have conversations as a coaching staff constantly with respect to these guys and, game to game on where they're at. And, if we feel like they're having a night or they're playing well, then we try to reward them and move them up accordingly. If we feel like there's a night where, hey, it's just been a struggle for them or whatever, or we think their confidence might be rattled a little bit, then maybe we move them down or we make adjustments. But we're always trying to watch for that stuff. In a lot of ways, we think we're trying to be proactive to just help the process so those young players continue to grow and develop.
Mike, he's not
Last one, guys.
He's not a young guy anymore, but Jonathan, gets a win for the first time in a very long time. And I know you're happy for all these other guys. Can you just say a couple words on how happy you might be for him?
I'm thrilled for Quickie. Not only does he get a win, but this win, if I'm not mistaken, moves him into 12th place ahead of Glenn Hall for all-time wins as a goaltender in the NHL, which is an incredible achievement. And I just think that speaks volumes for his body of work in this league. He means a lot to this team. He's a great leader. He competes extremely hard. He's one of the more popular guys in our dressing room for good reason. I just think all of us that are part of this team have so much respect for what he's accomplished in this game and his passion for the game, and he continues to strive for excellence every single day. His work ethic is impressive to watch day in and day out, and I think that speaks to his ability to play at such a high level, at the age that he's at. That's not easy to do, and so couldn't be happier for him because he's competing hard for us.
Thank you.
One more question.
It's okay, well now the pressure's on. You talk so much about a readiness to play. Just what did you feel was different in your team's start tonight?
Well, it's a good question because, you'd like to think every game you go into, you're ready to play from the drop of the puck, but some nights it just appears it's not always the case. And that's the human element of it. I just think a readiness for me always starts with a mindset going in and where you're at as a group. And so, you just talking about simplifying the game, playing the game a certain way, giving ourselves a chance to get into the game, get everybody on the ice, and start to get into the game so their adrenaline can get going and then they can play, on their emotions. And so when you look at some of the games we've had most recently, we're either taking a penalty the first shift in or the second shift in, or we give up a goal in the first 20 seconds, and it puts you on your heels. It's a tough way to start a game. And so, just allowing ourselves an opportunity to get into the game, get into the flow, get everybody on the ice, simplifying it, playing north-south. Those are some of the things that we talked about. But I do think a readiness really starts before the puck is even dropped. It starts with a mindset and your intentions, when you step onto that ice.